guys, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom Airsoft. It's good to see you again. If it's your first time here, it's good to see you. Today we're going to look at something a little bit different for Airsoft. We're not necessarily going to be looking at anything to do with replicas or tech, but following a post I put on social media, another thing that a lot of you wanted to see was some of the items that you might want to wear for your first Airsoft game. I mainly play outdoor games, woodland games specifically, so I'm going to focus my recommendations for the type of clothing and gear you might need for your first game based on playing outdoors in all weathers and at all times of year. So without further ado, let's get into that. We're going to start off with what trousers you might want to work with. Now, one thing I would say with trousers is there's one type of trouser that I don't normally recommend, and that's jeans. Anything with denim tends to soak up moisture, so if you're sweating them or if it's raining and they get wet, you know, they're going to take ages to dry out and they're not going to be very comfortable and they're going to get very heavy, so they're not going to be very easy to run in. They'll keep you warm, there's no problem there. And if you're perhaps going maybe for a private military contractor look or something like that, then jeans can work well with that. But for all days playing in the outdoors, denim is not the most comfortable or the most suitable for playing out in the woodland. Now, if you do any walking or any outdoor kind of activities, you might already have a pair of trousers like this. These are just Craghoppers trousers. They're walking trousers. They're not massively expensive, they're not hard to get hold of. You can get these from most outdoor pursuits type shops or stores or online, and these would be fine. They're semi-waterproof, they dry quickly, they keep the sweat away from your body, they're quite easy to run in, plenty of pockets. They're not particularly a combat trouser as such, but there is cargo pockets on the legs. So you've got more than enough space to put your bits and bats in, and these will keep you dry and warm when you're playing outdoors in the woodland. Now, if you're wanting to go for something specifically for Airsoft, which has more of an Airsoft look to it, I've had a lot of success with these trousers. Now, these are more of a workwear trouser, but they're in a DPM style camouflage pattern. Depends what you like yourself, but I quite like DPM. I think it's quite a good colour combination. It works especially well in woodland games, and it'll give you a bit more of the military look. Now, these particular trousers are made by a company called Blue Castle. They're a workwear trouser. They're very cheap. You can get a pair of these for around about £10 British. Plenty of pockets, nice big belt loops in them. For putting through your tactical belts or stiffer belts that you might need to put a holster on if you're going to be running a pistol in the future. Again, these trousers will keep you warm, they dry out very quickly. They're not so good for holding back the sweat. You know, you will sweat more in them, but still they're very comfortable. I've played many a game in these trousers, as you can probably tell. They get quite worn down, and I've never had any problems with them. They're strong enough with being workwear trousers to withstand tears and that type of thing. They're not going to rip easily. Nice big cargo pockets on the legs, so you can get magazines in there, whatever you might be carrying around with you. So as a starting out type of trouser, if you want to look the part, have a bit more of a military look to your trousers, I can definitely recommend a pair of DPM camouflaged workwear trousers. Specifically these ones. If you do go for the Blue Castle, they do them in other colours, other types of camouflage. They're only DPM pattern, but just different colours. The black ones are okay as well if you just want to go with a plain black trouser. But again, that's an option if you're just starting out. £10, very affordable. Now, if you want to go a step up and go for something that is more of a military trouser, these are Miltech. You can get these online or at surplus stores, that type of thing. Army surplus trousers is another option. They'll be more hard wearing. They're built for a specific task. But obviously on your local area or online, you can go to Army surplus. You might pay a little bit more for a pair of surplus trousers. But these Miltech trousers, these are absolutely fantastic. I've used these in many a game, no problem. The amount of camouflage patterns that you can get in these trousers is unbelievable. They do pretty much every camouflage that you can think of. These particular ones are Flecton, I do like this camouflage pattern. These ones retail for around about £30. Again, plenty hard wearing. They dry out quickly if they get wet in the rain. They're not too sweaty, for want of a better word. They don't make you sweat too much. And they are comfortable to wear all day and run around in. Plenty of pockets. Belt loops are more than big enough for getting through a stiffer belt for your holsters or even a tactical belt. So those are the trousers that I currently use. That's the pattern I'm on. Like I say, those are the DPM. If you want to go more for a look of a more military look, then that's absolutely fine. So that's your trousers sorted out. The next thing you want to look at if you're playing outdoors is keeping yourself warm and having plenty of layers. Now, I always tend to wear a base layer. This is a base layer. They're very basic, very thin. Again, they keep the sweat away from your body is the idea of them, and they also keep you warm. The key to playing outdoor, especially if you're going to be stationary for any length of time, such as if you're sniping, is to keep warm. If you're playing in winter, you definitely want to keep yourself warm. You are going to warm up when you start running around, but when you stop, if you're in the safe zone or if you're hiding in a position or something like that, you'll get cold quite quickly, especially if you have worked up a bit of a sweat running around. And this is where the base layers are magic. These aren't very expensive at all. You can get these at most outdoors pursuit shops or online. Just look for base layers. Obviously you can pay more for some than you will for others, but for Airsoft, you know, you spend as much as you need on a base layer. Over the top of this, for your top part, you could wear anything you wanted really. You can wear a t-shirt, any kind of t-shirt would be fine. Over the top of that you could wear a fleece. You could wear U-backs, which is more of a military look top. I'll put links of where you can get U-backs. Again, most of the U-backs will come in any camouflage colours you can imagine. Again, over the top of that you can wear a jumper, a sweatshirt, a hoodie, whatever you prefer. But what I would recommend is put quite a few layers on if you're playing in the winter, because you can always remove layers and then put them back on later. If you go with not enough, especially where I play here in the Highlands of Scotland, it can get very cold on a winter's day, and you don't want to get yourself caught out with not enough layers. Now obviously looking at tops and rain, now I tend to, when I'm in the game, just play with the layers I've got on and not to worry too much about the rain, because when you're under the tree canopy you don't really get a lot of the rain getting on you. But if you are wanting to go with a jacket, if you have a walking jacket, any kind of waterproof jacket will be absolutely fine. Obviously if it's brightly coloured, that might be quite a disadvantage when you're trying to hide in the bushes and what have you, but it'll still keep you dry. You can still wear it, it just depends how covert you want to be. But if you want a military style jacket, there are many options for army surplus. This is an army surplus jacket, again in DPM. Not very expensive. I'll put a link to where you can get one of these. You can wear a dark coloured jacket. There's many jackets available at online stores in various colours, but I don't tend to wear a jacket. Sometimes when I'm sniping I might wear a jacket because I'm stationary for a long time. But if you do want to wear a jacket, there's many options. You can wear something that you've got at an outdoor suit store. Just make sure that it's something that's going to be relatively breathable and that you don't mind getting it covered in mud or potentially dirt or even maybe getting ripped, because remember you are going to be running around, you might be lid down, you're going to be going through the bushes. So you know, where jackets are concerned, I wouldn't recommend spending a huge amount of money on something that may very well get damaged during the game. Surplus jackets are fine. Any jacket you want to go for, that's really down to your choice, but I would recommend darker colours, green colours, especially if you're playing in woodland, so it gives you some sort of camouflage, you know. So that's tops. Keep your layers, that's the main thing to remember. Keep yourself warm in the summer, not too bad. I'd still recommend to go with a base layer in the summer, just to keep the sweat away from your body, makes it more comfortable when you're moving around. So you've got your clothing, you've got a pair of trousers, you've got some tops, some layers to wear on your top half. There's a few options we've had a look at there. If you feel that you do want to go with some sort of rig, I am going to do a separate video on chest rigs, plate carriers, that type of thing, and the differences between them, the molly systems, the pouches, what sort of thing you can get. But however, if you're going on a budget and it's your very first time playing, if you haven't got your own replica, one of these is a great option. This was the first rig that I went with when I very first started, and this again was from Army Surplus. It's a Webtex assault vest. It's kitted out with pouches already, so it's not molly, you can't change the pouches out, they come pre-applied. But again, these pouches are set up for Stanag magazines, so that means that your AR pattern replica magazines will fit in here, and many other replicas magazines will fit in here. It's got pouches that you can put grenades in, car keys, phones, whatever you might need, it's covered in pouches. And to get you started, it looks the part, it's proven because it's used by the military. And if you go with the DPM trousers that I already mentioned, you're looking at a very cheap setup to actually have a rig and a pair of DPM trousers which will match. One of these rigs is around about £20 on average from an Army Surplus store. Again, you'll have surplus stores online, you might have a surplus store in your local area where you can get one of these from. So that's an option, and then obviously as you get further into it, you might decide that you want to go for chest rigs and things like that. This is a combat belt. This is my shooter's belt, one of my shooter's belts. You'll notice that the belts are a lot stiffer so that you can mount a holster on there, a paddle holster, and it's not going to flex about too much on your hip. I would recommend getting one of these belts, not necessarily a shooter's belt with the molly attachments on, but get yourself a stiff belt. You'll be able to find those online. It'll keep your trousers up for one. And for another, if you do start clipping things to it, it'll hold those better. It won't flex like a canvas belt or something like that. So these are all things, like I say, the shooter's belts are something we'll cover in detail when we look at the plate carriers and chest rigs and that type of thing. But if you are just starting out, if you want to go with the assault vest, then you know it is a very affordable option, and I used this for a good while until I started building up my collection of gear. But a belt, as I say, is definitely one to look at, so that if you do expand the kind of kit you're using, it's there to support you, and it'll certainly hold your first sidearm that you get in a holster. So that's us covered for those. What I won't be covering in this video is eye protection. I'm going to assume if it's your first game and you're looking at eye protection, I did do a separate video which I'll put a link in the description to, on a good affordable set of eye protection and lower face protection. But a lot of sites will provide you with face or eye and lower face protection, so you should be good for that. So these gloves, these items are really to make your first time at woodland play a bit more comfortable and a bit more enjoyable. So the last thing we're going to come to, covering the kind of gear you want to be wearing when you show up for an airsoft game, and potentially the most important item that you want to be looking at is your footwear. A couple of recommendations I would make. Trainers, I would not recommend trainers for woodland play. I have known people playing trainers. I have known people run around the forest in a pair of trainers, but there's a few reasons why that's a bad idea in my opinion. The first reason being they don't offer a lot of ankle support. In a forest environment or a woodland environment, you do get a lot of tree roots, maybe stone outcrops, moss, lots of surfaces that you can quite easily go over on your ankle. Without proper ankle support, you might cut your day short and do yourself quite a severe injury. Another thing is that if it's not quite so dry a day, you can get running trainers for cross-country running, but they aren't going to offer the level of waterproof protection that a good boot will offer you. They're certainly not going to cover you far enough up that if you go in a deep puddle of mud, they're going to stop your feet getting wet. And there's nothing worse than if you've paid for a day's airsoft and right at the beginning of the day you end up with wet feet, because you are going to be uncomfortable for the rest of the day. Okay, so here we have the boots that I've been using more and more recently. Now these aren't a military boot. As far as I'm aware, they're not something that any military would use. You can see they've been well used. They're back from a game, so they're a little bit dirty, hence the matting that we've got down here. Excuse that. So these boots are by OEX. These boots retail at around about £60 British. Now these are what is known as a low boot, so they're a little bit higher than you get on a shoe or a trainer, but they are quite low down. Now the reason I like these is they're very light, they're waterproof, they have a good grip on the bottom of the boot, so they offer a lot of traction in the forest or in the mud when you're outdoors, and you can move fast in them. They give you a lot of maneuverability purely because they're low level boots. They're not a high boot, they're a low boot. So they do give you a lot of maneuverability. They allow your feet to breathe. They're very comfortable. You can wear these all day and you'll not have a problem. So that's the boots that I'm using currently. Superb boot. So I can definitely recommend those. However, the only disadvantage they have is they don't offer you as a huge amount of ankle support. They offer you more ankle support than a trainer, but not as much as something like this. Now this is what we call a high boot. And as you can see, it's a much bigger boot for a start, not the shoe size, but it goes a lot further up your ankle. It offers a huge amount of ankle support. And these, again, are waterproof. They're a strong boot. They're a lot heavier than this boot. You don't get as much maneuverability in them, but they will protect your ankles and they will keep you safe in the field. Again, they have a very good grip on them. Now, these boots, again, it depends what you're looking at. You can get army surplus boots that will have a similar design to this. They're going to retail depending on what army surplus you go to. But I've seen those going for around about £30 British. These particular boots are very expensive. You're going to be looking at about over £100. If you go to most outdoor pursuits shops or online sites, if you go to the military surplus sites or even the stores that sell military gear such as Military First, they'll have a huge selection of boots and the prices can go all over the place. Now what I would say is you don't have to go crazy on the price of your boots, but you do tend to get what you pay for in boots. I've found that the high-tech brand are very good for the money that you pay. These OEX ones are superb. But a good pair of boots is always going to offer you better protection than a pair of trainers or a pair of shoes or that type of thing. So where footwear is concerned, I can't recommend enough that for you to enjoy your day of airsoft, get yourself a relatively good pair of boots. They're going to be much better than anything else you can play. And I have seen people turn up in Wellington boots before. Now to me, I can't see that being comfortable for a whole day's airsoft. It's not something you can really run in. So definitely go for a good pair of boots. If you're playing indoors, as I say, I don't play indoors that much, so that might be different entirely. But for outdoor airsoft, I can't recommend enough getting yourself a decent pair of boots. Okay, so I think we've covered everything there that you might need to wear and that you'd want to be expecting for your first airsoft game. So just to summarise what we've looked at, get yourself some trousers that aren't going to hold moisture, they aren't going to get too heavy when they get wet, and they're going to keep you warm and relatively dry. Get yourself a number of layers, especially if you're going to be playing outdoors in the winter. Start with a base layer, work your way up from there. And then for jackets, as I say, I don't tend to wear a jacket when I'm playing that much, but if you do want to wear a jacket, then you know, it's a bit more common sense really. If you want to wear a light outer shell waterproof jacket, that's fine. The choices are endless when you start looking at these things. But again, don't spend huge amounts of money on a jacket because there's every chance it could get damaged during the game. Tops and things, again, you can go with military style tops. If you want to get yourself a cheap affordable rig, you can do that. The assault vest that I showed you earlier there is army surplus. It's very cheap. But overall, you want to make sure that you're warm and as dry as possible and that you can remove layers if you start getting too warm. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it was useful for you. hope it'll help you out when you're getting your stuff together to go to your first game. And if you did enjoy the video, then don't forget to put a like at the bottom. If there's anything you would have preferred to see, or if you've got any ideas for future videos you'd like me to do, then drop me a comment below and I'll always get back to you. And if you have been enjoying my series of videos, as always, please subscribe and then you'll know when a new video's been released. I'll always try and put a new video out every Sunday. If I can't get the video out on Sunday, it'll go out on the Saturday. I'll never put a video out late. But overall, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.